welcome back to Chapter Day. Happy Monday. And we'll be reading 2nd Chronicles chapter 13 today. Yesterday we read about the break of the 10 tribes of Israel from Judah because of the leadership of Rehoboam, um, let's see, I believe Rehoboam became the new king, and Jeroboam was taking over from Solomon as prophesied. So he got the 10 tribes, that's Jeroboam, and Rehoboam got the 2 tribes, and they were about to come to war with each other when God stopped them and sent the seer or prophet to stop them and say, hey, don't go to war. This separation is my doing. So sometimes, when things seem like it's going wrong in our lives and we're thinking to ourselves, oh man, this is the worst thing. God is not in my life. Not every seemingly bad thing that happens in your life is actually a bad thing. It may be a good thing sent from God, but it came dressed up in something that we didn't want. And we consider it a bad thing. Okay, so sometimes we got to read. That's why I'm saying when we read these scriptures, we get wiser. I mean, really? It opens up your mind, it opens up your eyes, and you're like, oh my gosh, really? You know what? Maybe that's why. And it makes you wiser. You can't read the scriptures and become dumber. There's no such thing. That means you're not reading the scriptures. Okay, so they both were going to go to war, but God stopped it. And let's see. They talked about how many wives he had. That's one thing he took over from his father with. Although his father outdid him, his father was Solomon. He had a lot of wives and a lot of children. Wives, concubines, which I could never understand. What's the difference between the two? I don't know. But anyway, wives, concubines, and children. Okay? And they said the last sentence in that chapter was, he desired many wives. All right, so let's go on. Chapter 12 is what we'll be reading today. And it came to pass when Rehoboam had established the kingdom and had strengthened himself, he forsook the law of the Lord and all Israel with him. And it came to pass that in the 5th year of King Rehoboam, Shishak king of Egypt came up against Jerusalem, because they had transgressed against the Lord, with 1,200 chariots and 60,000 horsemen. And the people were without number that came with him out of Egypt, the Lubims, the Sukkims, and the Ethiopians. And he took the fenced cities which pertained to Judah, and came to Jerusalem. Then came Shemaiah the prophet to Rehoboam and to the princes of Judah that were gathered together to Jerusalem because of Shishak, and said unto them, thus saith the Lord, you have forsaken me, and therefore have I also left you in the hand of Shishak. So here we go again. The king, the leader, I would say, sets the stage for the people. If your leader is off morally and spiritually, guess what? That's the way the nation goes for the majority. But there's always a few who hold on to God, and that's what we need to do. Here in Israel, the leaders were supposed to be God-fearers. That's the huge difference. They were supposed to be led by God, but they started wanting to lead them. So you can't lead yourself. What power do you have within yourself? What power do we have within ourselves? There's people going around talking nonsense about bring out the God within you. What God you're talking about? If we were so powerful, we would be able to make ourselves. We can't create ourselves. We can procreate, but we cannot just will ourselves into being. That's not. So what gods are we? That's nonsense. We need God, and not a man-made God. We need a God that exists long before we did, and knows and created us. I don't want to worship something that I don't even know how you got there. As a matter of fact, how you and I are related. I know God created me. Our forefathers, that's how we came from Adam and Eve. Coming down the line, we all got here through that system. Okay, so they forsake the king. Rehoboam forsook God, and the whole group of people followed him. And I'm not going to say everybody did, because I'm sure there's always some who say, no, I am not following the king's way. Even today, there are people who will say, no, if the king or if the leader of a country make a rule that goes against God, that's why a lot of Christians were killed long ago, because some people said, nope, we're not following the king, even the pilgrims before they got here. All right. And that is exactly what happened. God punished the people because they had all followed the leadership and gone astray. So he allowed their enemies to come in. It says, when a man's ways please the Lord, he makes even your enemies to be at peace with you. But here they were not pleasing the Lord, so their enemies came upon them. Okay, verse 6. Whereupon the princes of Israel and the king humbled themselves, and they said, the Lord is righteous. And when the Lord saw that they humbled themselves, the word of the Lord came to Shemaiah, saying, they have humbled themselves, therefore I will not destroy them, but I will grant them some deliverance. And my wrath shall not be poured out upon Jerusalem by the hand of Shishak. Nevertheless, they shall be his servants, that they may know my service and the service of the kingdoms of the countries. So Shishak, king of Egypt, came up against Jerusalem and took away the treasures of the house of the Lord and the treasures of the king's house. He took all. He carried away also the shields of gold which Solomon had made, instead of which King Rehoboam made shields of brass, and committed them to the hands of the chief of the guard that kept the entrance of the king's house. So once again, like I said, when they raided Jerusalem, they always went for the temple and Solomon's palace, because that's where the treasures were. And that's what they took away, all those beautiful items Solomon made. Unfortunately, that's what disobedience brings us. Okay, verse 11. And when the king entered into the house of the Lord, the guard came and fetched them and brought them again into the guard chamber. And when he humbled himself, the wrath of the Lord turned from him, that he would not destroy him altogether. And also in Judah, things went well. Heard that? When they turned again to God, things went well. Verse 13. So King Rehoboam strengthened himself in Jerusalem and reigned. For Rehoboam was 41 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 17 years in Jerusalem, the city which the Lord had chosen out of all the tribes of Israel to put his name there. And his mother's name was Naamah, an Ammonitess. And he did evil because he prepared not his heart to seek the Lord. Now the acts of Rehoboam, first and last, are they not written in the book of Shemaiah, the prophet, and of Iddo, the seer, concerning genealogies? And there were wars between Rehoboam and Jeroboam continually. And Rehoboam slept with his fathers and was buried in the city of David. And Abijah, his son, reigned in his stead. And that's the end of chapter 12 of 2 Chronicles. So we see what's happening with the king that came after Solomon. His son Rehoboam did not choose to walk right in God's sight, had Israel committed idolatry, and God allowed their enemies to come up against them. They turned around and humbled themselves before God. God pardoned them and restored some peace. But Rehoboam's heart was evil to not do that which was right in God's sight. He eventually died, and his son Abijah reigned after him. And that's the end of our reading for today. Once again, if we walk in God's ways, God will bless us. And that's not to say Satan is not going to step his foot into our path to trip us up, but we will get up. Okay? I don't understand everything that happens in the world. Sometimes as a Christian, I wish God would just shield his people. But guess what? Even we don't always walk right in God's sight. Even us, who are supposed to be God's people, even the best of us, we slip up. And that's how God teaches us the lesson. Hey, get back on track. And sometimes we do it willfully, sometimes we do it unknowingly. But God is always there to guide us and to bless us and to forgive us and to strengthen us. So, with that said, let's keep holding on to God. What else is there? Who are you going to hold on to? Satan. All Satan wants to do is rip us like shreds, throw us to the wind. Yeah, believe it or not, all the fun we have here with Satan. Oh, Anyway, thank you all for listening once again. Until our next reading, faith comes by hearing God's word. Take care. Bye.